Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to say it's a great pleasure to meet you all through the Come Up 2020 special event. My name is Brian Koo, and I'm the managing partner at Formation 8 and Formation Group. First of all, Come Up 2020 is a premier startup festival in Asia, and the central theme is Meet the Future Post-Pandemic. Today, we are very lucky to have Professor Fei-Fei Li with us, given the importance of AI, especially when the world is changing so fast. Let me do a brief introduction, and we will then start the discussion with Fei-Fei. Fei-Fei is the inaugural Sequoia Professor in the Computer Science Department at Stanford University and co-director of Stanford's Human-Centered AI Institute, called HAI. She served as the director of Stanford's AI Lab from 2013 to 2018, and during her sabbatical from Stanford, from January 2017 to September 2018, she was vice president at Google and served as chief scientist of AI and ML, machine learning, at Google Cloud. Oh, it is truly an impressive experience you have, Fei-Fei, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Brian. It's quite an honor to be virtually in Korea and to have a conversation with the Stanford alum.
Yes, no, it's a great pleasure and honor for me as well as a Stanford alum. And I mean, you're, like a celebrity in the AI world. And thank you again for your time. I would just like to start saying that it would have definitely been great if we were able to do this event offline and actually have you invite, to Korea. But do you have any personal story related to Korea from your experience?
Yeah, so first of all, coming to Korea has been a personal travel goal. If it were not this pandemic, I would have visited Korea this February. My tickets were all bought and meetings booked. So well, that's an unfortunate turn. So I have always loved Korean culture and personally, I've had a fortune of working with multiple Korean born or Korean heritage students, postdocs, and colleagues in my career throughout for the past 15, 16 years. So it's really I do feel connected. I have had wonderful students introducing me to different parts of the culture and traditions. I really, really do look forward to coming in a post-pandemic world.
Yes. No, this is hopefully just the beginning, right, of a great relationship between you and, Stanford HAI and Korea. So absolutely, we would, be looking forward to having you over here. Fei-Fei, people call you the leader of deep learning. As the expert of AI, may I ask you, what is the biggest difference you see in our daily life between before pandemic and after pandemic?
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for the question. So first of all, sitting here in United States, I don't feel like we're post-pandemic, unfortunately. Korea has been a leading country in the world that has really contained this pandemic in such a fantastic way. We definitely watch from afar with a bit of envy. So life has changed quite a bit, right? Even personally, I work online and I think about all the essential frontline workers and how they are really helping to lift the society and shouldering the bulk of the responsibilities in this pandemic. One area that I pay close attention to, and I think it's deeply affected by the pandemic, is actually helping our aging society. So for the past almost a decade, in addition to basic science, deep learning, computer vision, and AI, I've been deeply involved in AI and healthcare research. And the research topic we have been working on is how do we transform or improve the quality of healthcare delivery through AI and smart sensors. And one of the biggest potential use area of this technology is actually to help our aging seniors. This is a global issue, and both in the States as well as in Korea, you see more and more aging seniors. And our goal for them, speaking as a daughter of two aging parents, is for them to live healthily, independently, at home as much as possible, and whenever needed, they get the timely help. Well, the pandemic has really heightened the need of our seniors. First of all, unfortunately, this virus hits our seniors particularly hard due to a number of reasons. Some of the biochemical reasons are still not totally clear, but due to pre-existing conditions, due to chronic diseases, due to community living as nursing homes, all this has exacerbated the situation for our seniors. In the meantime, the technology we have been working on is a technology that can allow seniors to be at home, where smart sensors is part of their caretaking to ensure that they don't show early signs of infection. They continue to be taken care of in their chronic precondition healthcare plans. This technology can also help to discern changes of daily activity patterns, sleep patterns, nutrition intake, and a bunch of related medically relevant changes. So for me, I think the pandemic really increased my strong desire to really get this technology to work, and one day send it to the homes of our seniors, so that if there is another pandemic, they're more taken care of. But more importantly, even without a pandemic, this technology can help to improve the quality of aging at home and ensure their well-being.
I see. I see. Oh, that's very inspiring. Thank you for that. And I believe that's also what you're focusing on at Stanford HAI at this moment. Let's talk about that a little bit as well. If I may I ask you what made you accept the leadership, the co-director position at Stanford HAI?
Thank you so much, Brian, for that question. So I would first say that HAI is a brainchild of so many faculty and Stanford leaders. So I'm just lucky to be part of the faculty leadership. It does come through a very personal way. As you said, that I was on sabbatical, as many professors do, during a 20-month period between 2017 and 2018. And I was very lucky to be working at Google Cloud. The reason I went to work at Google Cloud is because of the mission of democratizing AI. I see the opportunity of industrial transformations coming in every single vertical. We just talk about healthcare, but really there is, whether it's transportation, agriculture, entertainment, finance, every vertical of the world is and will be even more impacted by AI. As I go through that sabbatical experience, being the chief scientist there, one thing that really, really hit home and heightened my sense of responsibility and passion of human-centered AI is how profound this technology will impact human lives and impact our community, impact our society, not only through a technological transformation, but it will impact our social compact, it will impact our ethics code, will impact the way the governance is done in our societies, will impact how laws are made and interpreted, will impact culture. Those of us who are older know that kids laugh at us when we say thank you to Alexa or Google Home, right? Like even as small as that is shifting due to technology. And with that realization, my colleagues and and I started to talk at Stanford, I realized at this moment in history, there is a responsibility and opportunity for Stanford to rise to the occasion. We've been leaders of AI technology. I was the director of Stanford AI Lab for many years before I went to Google, but it's not enough. We should really recognize this new chapter of AI. This new chapter should be human-centered, should harness AI to make the world better, should forecast the dangers and the pitfalls of this technology, and should help our the civil society and our policymakers to put the right guardrails and policies. So with all these ideals that we hold dearly, I returned to Stanford and worked for a year with my colleagues, especially Professor John H. Mendy, who is now the co-director of HAI, and many other faculty together. We launched HAI in March 2019. So it's still a young organization, but the goal is really, our mission is to advance AI research, education, policy, and outreach to better human conditions.
I see. Well, thank you for that. I was actually going to ask you about the goal and plan of HI, but I think you already, covered it, in your answer. Feifei, it is. I mean, I'm personally also very excited about, the HAI. Talking about humanity, like with the concept of AI is definitely, I think, very important. Given the audience we have, at Come Up, could you just tell us how Korean either companies or all these entrepreneurs, how they could possibly, work with Stanford HAI? What would be the way to add value or hopefully create value together?
So first of all, Brian, Stanford is in the heart of Silicon Valley, and we love entrepreneurs. Stanford is proud that we have so many entrepreneurs from our alumni and friends. And I also, being someone who is familiar with Asian culture, I have always admired and really being impressed by the entrepreneurial spirit of Korean youth and Korean society. So it's just such a tremendous time for those of you who are entrepreneurs out there. The societal changes we're going through, the changes of our natural world, whether it's climate and other things, and driven by the technology, the opportunities there is, I really think that there could not have been a better time to be an entrepreneur, especially if you have this audacious dream of using your product, service, and ideas to serve our world better. So from that point of view, there are so many touch points HAI has with the entrepreneurs around the world. Please sign up, for example, to our newsletters and events. We bring HAI has been and will continue to aspire to be a global hub of many, many voices. We have tremendous technologists, both at Stanford as well as our collaborators around the world. We can bring the most exciting and the newest technology ideas to you through our seminars, newsletters, blogs, papers. In the meantime, we convene social scientists and humanity scholars to speak of the deep societal issues that every entrepreneur would be interested in, whether it's the fairness of machine learning or privacy of computing or impact of AI to the future of jobs, or the relationship between technology and governance, or even geopolitical issues. We bring scholars to convene, discuss. We also, if you want to get more involved, we also have venues to bring multi-stakeholders at the table to discuss really critical issues. For example, just this past season, we had a amazing panel that's run by one of our HAI faculty leader, Professor Dan Ho from law school, to discuss face recognition technology. We bring computer scientists who are at the forefront of face recognition technology together with lawyers, with government officials, with U.S. federal government official, U.S. local and state officials, as well as European Union leaders. We also bring in civil society, nonprofits and activists, as well as technology companies like Amazon, Google, and many others. And we actually convene these events and discuss deeply about what are the opportunities and pitfalls of this technology, and we're issuing blogs and policy briefs afterwards. So for those entrepreneurs interested in different topics, there are also ways like this to get involved.
I see. Well, thanks for that guidance. Let me now, Faith, ask you a couple questions about AI. Given your background, Faith, Koreans, many Koreans remember, the match between human and AI with the AlphaGo. If you remember the Go
Of
game.
course, 2016 with Lisa Do.
Right. I mean, I personally, grew up playing Go as well.
Wow, are you good?
I'm just okay.
Have you played AI?
Yes. It's just hard to beat anyway, right? And it was a shocking moment actually, right? For especially people who knows about Go, right? Because among the top level players in Go are kind of considered as kind of god level, I mean compared to other games, given the depth, right, and complexity of the game. So when it was for sure, right, that it's impossible now to actually beat the AI in those kind of games as well. People started to talk about what is, are we done, right, with those kind of activities, right? What is humans' role, right? And this is so symbolic. What if this happens in many other things, which is probably going to be the case? What is your take on in terms of humans' role? Given the HAI's approach as well. Would love to ask you that.
So, Brian, such an excellent question, and thank you for giving me a chance to discuss this, especially with a group of Korean friends, because this is symbolic, given that Master Lisa Do is from Korea. So one of the three intellectual pillars of HAI is that the next generation AI technology should be inspired by human brain, human cognition, and human behavior. So something that is so important for humans' capability to demonstrate intelligence is, continue to be a inspiration for AI. Now, when it comes to Go, I have to confess, I did not feel the same kind of shock as a lot of the public. Not because it's not impressive. I think DeepMind did an incredibly impressive job. And in fact, many of my friends are there, and I just admire their efforts. I think it's because we have to look a little more mathematically about what Go is about. As for a human mind, figuring out the infinite configurations of a 19 by 19 Go board and the winning moves is computationally extremely intense, right? Our brain is not made for that. And so for the masters to, after training and also due to their brilliance, to be able to do that well, it is a very admirable capability. But computers, on the other hand, are good at computing to start with. They're extremely fast. Transistors are way faster than neurons. Of course, not necessarily per energy unit, but still, they're just extremely fast. And Go, as complex as the mathematical search space is, it's extremely simple as a task because it has a extremely well-defined goal. You want your color to occupy the most space. And it has a very easily expressible mathematical reward function. So from that point of view, it is actually a totally comprehensible for someone like me as an AI technologist why we can achieve Go in 2016 or in 21st century. Whereas if any of you have a child and watch the development of a child, let's say we take a 3-year-old to the kitchen and just look at how she navigates the kitchen, play with the spoons, use a fork to, to build a bridge with the drawer, and come up with very interesting ideas of how to afford objects, how to navigate, how to, make things out of, very creative ideas. That to me is way more complex as an intelligent task compared to Go in many dimensions. The ability to extrapolate, the ability to learn without examples or with very few examples, the ability to combine perception with motion, with planning, the ability to create and innovate, and eventually the ability to communicate and to also, transmit emotions and intentions. That complexity of intelligence is still, AI is nowhere near. And it does, as someone who works in AI, it still continues to excite me every morning when I wake up to think about how far we are. But I do want to contrast that child's ability to master the world compared to a Go player's ability to win a game. I think they're very different space, literally, and and as symbolic as that moment is, I do try to. I do feel it's one of my responsibility to try to de-hype what AI could do, especially when there is a fear that does that mean humans have no place in history and machine overlords is taking over. It's really not at all. And I think it's important to communicate with the public in the most honest and factual way.
It's really interesting. No, I really appreciate your perspective because, especially the point of, Go in terms of actual the goal of the game, right? Like just having more land with your color of the stone, mathematical approach, all that really makes sense because, what I was thinking was, when I grew up learning about the Go, yes, we learned about winning and losing, but it was more about also kind of like, putting this whole board as like your life kind of board, and it's about strategy, it's about competition, it's about your own kind of journey, right? And I thought maybe AI doesn't really count those at all. It's just about winning and losing for now.
Yeah, one of the most touching moments that I've read and experienced with the Lisa Do match with Go is that AI can win, but it's the human tier of Master Lisa Do that moves our heart. I'm not saying because of that, AI didn't win or it's not impressive. I'm just saying that the dimensions of intelligence and the dimensions of being human is so much richer than a mathematical, win of, say, winning the land in this case.
Right. Got it. Well, I mean, I think you touched on this also already a little bit, but just wanted to get your thoughts on just one more thing related to AI. As you know, Fei, many people talk about, all the possible danger, right, of AI, especially as it further develops its own intelligence, right? So when people hear from the news that, the AI is actually getting smarter itself, right? And once it really goes beyond, what we can control, would it become a threat, right, to our lives? May I ask your perspective on that?
Yes, Brian, I think it's an important responsibility for those of us who I feel so lucky to be involved in AI for the past 2 decades. My opinion is the biggest danger of AI lies within humans. Every technology, every tool humans have developed in our entire civilization, from east to west for many, many thousand years, is a double-edged sword. The way humans use these tools is either can be benevolent or it can be dangerous. So the biggest danger and biggest threat I see in today's AI and ongoing is how we design, develop, and deploy this technology. There are actually many eminent and ongoing danger, such as how we talk about machine learning fairness, right? When machine learning is assisting decision making and it's biased because of whether it's data bias or algorithm bias or inference bias, it can really harm human lives, whether you're in a financial system for loan decision or judicial system for parole decision, or a self-driving car looking at pedestrians. If it has a bias for different colored skin, that could be dangerous, or healthcare. There is a lot of danger in privacy. AI is powerful and it provides information or can discern information about people in ways that we could not imagine. And I remember there is, just ongoing research about using machine learning to reconstruct human bodies behind a wall using radio signals. These are all privacy related issues that we need to come around. We shouldn't take the view that the sweeping technology is bad, but we must stay ahead of this and forecast the issues and try to work with policymakers to harness this. Again, AI is not unique. Let's look at our biotechnology, look at our, going back in history, whether it's electricity or even fire, we face that kind of danger. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, there is the more science fictional danger of machines taking over human will, or machines become the overlord. But I think before we get to that science fiction point, which there's a long way to go, we just talked about a child versus playing Go. Before that, we already have a lot of dangers, and not to mention digital totalitarianism or authoritarianism that uses AI as tools. So this is where HAI at Stanford would like to call to everybody's awareness that we do have a lot of problem to work on now. And this is why Stanford HAI really took a new approach. We recognize AI is no longer a niche computer science discipline. We must invite social scientists, policy thinkers, legal scholars, political scientists, ethicists, all of these people to come and join us and sometimes lead us to solve these problems.
Right. No, I totally agree. And as part of that argument, I wanted to ask you about something specifically related to Korea, right? Feifei, Korea now these days, right? Korea is seeing a lot more opportunity and potential in contents, art, right? Which includes music. Given especially the recent success of some Korean pop, we call it K-pop, right? And the media content such as the boy group BTS, becoming #1 on the Billboard, and Parasite movie getting a lot of recognition. People here in Korea are very curious if this type of industry, right, the art and music and all of this type of content, industry could be still related to AI, right? Could AI also play a key role in these industries? How should we think about that is a big discussion over here. We would love to get your perspective on that.
So first of all, I do read in the news of how popular K-pop is, and I feel so old and not up to date, and I really need to get online and get more familiar with this. But absolutely, I even as arcane as I am, I'm aware of how amazing Korean pop culture has stormed the world and continue to. So very exciting times. So I think when it comes to human creativity and content creation, AI is already playing a role. I remember last year there was the first auction of AI art by a very prominent auction company. I don't remember the name, but of tens of thousands of dollars. So I have friends around me who are artists, visual artists, as well as musical artists who are using AI tools, machine learning tools to help them to co-create pieces. In fact, there is a recent technology called Generative Adversarial Network, or GAN, that is a machine learning tool that can generate images or sound or videos. And look here again, it's a double-edged sword. I think on the art side, it's a wonderful tool to do content editing, content creation. On the other hand, it's also a tool that can contribute to dis and misinformation and fake deep fakes and all that. So we do have to worry about that. But back to the content and media and art, I think the short answer to that is there's a tremendous opportunity for machine learning tools to help our artists. My belief, and again, it's another important intellectual pillar of Stanford HAI, is just like many, many tools, AI should be here to augment human capability, not to replace. There's so much AI can do to enhance and augment. Again, I do more healthcare research, and I see how I completely disagree with the talk about replacing doctors, because as a patient family, I take care of my mother who's constantly in the hospital, and I appreciate how much human importance there is in healthcare system. But I also appreciate how much AI can help our nurses and doctors, and the same with artists. Beyond content creation, AI has a big role in the industry of entertainment, right? Because AI can automate a lot of process in terms of content analysis, content recommendation, understand user intent, and just many different aspects of the media and entertainment industry can take advantage of AI's computing capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. No, I also agree. I mean, and that's why I thought, like, when I first heard about HAI, I thought the name itself was very powerful. I remember the time when big data was a big word, first time, right? That it was also about the importance of how human, right? And technology really works together rather than who's going to be better or who's going to replace.
Yeah.
So really, really appreciate your perspective on that. Let me just shift a little bit towards more like, what I guess Korea would, like to ask you, like Korean government or Korean people here. This is a little bit, less about AI, just given, your experience in Silicon Valley, all your work over there. Fei Fei, the Korean government is always trying to find more ways for startups, and we call them conglomerates, right? The big companies, tech companies, to collaborate and create synergy. Given your experience at Google as well, right? Would you have any advice on what role the kind of bigger tech companies could play for this?
Yeah, so we can explore this topic. Great question. So I think I have two big points to make. One is about what has really, I think, I find it extremely impressive of what ecosystem that the U.S. Industry and academia and government have co-played together. The other one is about going forward in the new era of today's society and AI or technology. So one thing that I feel extremely proud of as an American computer scientist is what the incredible innovation that the US technology ecosystem has been like for the past decades, approaching probably a century, but at least more than half a century, right? If you look at the recent advances in computer technology, in biotechnology, I think part of or a large part of this success is this amazing ecosystem between federal support of higher education and research institutions, as well as the technology, the industry ecosystem. We got places like Bell Labs in the 70s, who are leading a lot of incredible physics and communications research. And then we move into computer science. We got Microsoft's labs and Google and so on. And at HAI, and also we're just a tiny reflection of the bigger model, is that we do collaborate with companies, and that collaboration is mutually beneficial. On one hand, they become part of an important resource for universities and higher education to be able to do independent research. This is really important, and just like everybody, all universities, Stanford emphasize on our independence, but the resource coming from both federal and industry really is critically important for us to carry out this independent research. In the meantime, by having that ongoing conversation with industry, we understand the problems, the pressing problems they want to solve, and it inspires our researchers to work on these problems that has real world relevance. Myself, having talked to hospital leaders and doctors, leading doctors and nurses in the past 10 years, I feel like almost every one of my healthcare project has been inspired by the real needs for patients and clinicians. And the same could be true for other industries. So that is so important. And I think to do it right, so that we can have the independence, but also have that kind of exchange and brain sharing, is what continues the streak of innovation and advance. But now I also think we have entered a different era. I think especially technology companies have totally come of age. They have become the most powerful companies of the world. And now not only they continue to push the frontiers of technology, there is the multi-stakeholder responsibility that they share with governments, with the community, the rest of the community. And I think HAI again see the desire of technology companies wanting to do things right, and we also have the desire to bring all the multi-stakeholder at the table into this important conversation. So you find companies, big companies in technology, not only in talking about AI algorithms with us, but they also talk about future of work. They talk about machine learning fairness. They talk about privacy issues. They talk about geopolitics and all that. And I think that Korea has some really incredibly impressive companies, whether it's Samsung or your car companies and so on. I think you have an opportunity to be leaders in contributing to this multi-stakeholder approach to continue to bring out the innovation of technology, but also to do socially responsible technology and to help everybody.
I appreciate that advice. It's an ongoing definitely question, and I think it gives a lot of thoughts for the ecosystem in Korea. Really appreciate it. We came to the kind of last question we prepared. Fei-Fei, Silicon Valley, where Stanford is as well, it's definitely the global center of startup, of entrepreneurship. As we have actually many entrepreneurs at the Come Up event. Could you give any advice to the Korean startups that are planning to go global, or just any advice in general as they start their journey?
Yeah, so I've lived most of my life in academia and Google, but I also have a very fortunate journey to watch some of the Stanford alumni, do their startup, and sometimes I lend my advice and help to them, and in various ways. Startup is hard. I'm sure you know this, Brian. You would advise any young person to enter the world of entrepreneurship with eyes wide open and really have that fire in the belly to pursue the passion, right? Without that, it's hard to endure. In the meantime, for those entrepreneurs who are, especially in the AI space or machine learning space, I do invite them to think about the multi-stakeholder approach, because the community you're going to serve with the technology or products or service, it's really important to hear, from multi-stakeholders what would work, both from a tech product point of view, but also from the human impact and societal impact point of view. The more we serve better that multi-stakeholder groups, the more I think we'll have a more lasting impact in our endeavor. And I also do get questions from startups, machine learning startups, and say, how do we compete with big companies who hold all the data in the world and also compute and so on? It is not easy. It is challenging. But again, my personal view is that if you really focus on understanding the pain points of the customers you want to serve and truly understand what they need, there is going to be an opportunity for you to have the most unique angle and collect the unique data and find a unique solution that even the mighty big companies might not have. So do not despair. Really just focus on solving the true problem that your customers need.
Mm. Oh, well, Feifei, that was really, really helpful and inspiring. I learned a lot as well. And again, it's thanks to technology, we can still have you, involved virtually. Definitely, we would love to have you in Korea, right? And hopefully the near future.
Yeah, thank you. And it is a personal dream for me, having loved Korean culture, Korean food for so many years, that I would love to come and visit Korea.
Yes, I believe it's going to be like very soon. And again, thank you for all the inspiration you provided today. It's such an honor to have you as part of this discussion, this event, and hope to build a long-term relationship between Korea and you and Stanford, and definitely Stanford HAI. We wish the best for Stanford HAI. Such an important task, right? Given everything you also talked about. So yes, with that said, I think we'll wrap up the session now. Thank you again for all the audience at Come Up 2020. Thanks for having both me and Feifei as part of it. And I hope the rest of the event goes super well.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you for all the audience, and best wishes to everybody out there.
Thank you, Feifei.